Hi, you're watching On the Mark with Mark. We're continuing on today with the kitchen cabinets modifications. This is some nice upgrades I made uh, back a few years ago, and I have a slideshow of what I did. And we're starting here with the sketch again, and this video is going to be focused on this center section of cabinets here. And if you look close, you'll see there's an upside down wine glass right here, and there's two rows of coffee cups hanging here. If you remember from the first video, the green ink is the existing condition and the blue ink is the stuff that I intend to add. So you see that green line right there? That's where there's a divider in the kitchen cabinets as we purchased the house. So let's get started. Here's more existing condition, and that's the center section right there that we're going to be working on. Now I've got the stiles and rails pulled off the cabinets. And then here's a box that I built that slides in to the existing conditions. Remember, there's three things that we're doing. Number one, the kitchen has to stay up and running the whole time we're doing this remodel or upgrade. Number two, we have to accept the things that are there and reuse them. And number three, it does not have to be perfect. So we're shooting for very good, but perfection is, let's see, it's two things. It's a road to misery, and perfection is the enemy of good enough. So here we go. So there's a new box that I've put on the front here that brings the cabinet out to just a couple of inches from the front of the refrigerator below, which is what I wanted, so that stuff didn't get set on the refrigerator, making it so you can't open those doors, which then makes it so you don't ever use the space that's up there. You can see here again, I've used all used lumber. This came from the Restore, which is the Habitat for Humanity. And I don't know why I thought I needed to use this piece here. It looks like somebody's been cutting shingles on this piece of plywood, but it worked out. It's kind of a gross looking piece of wood there. Looks like I'm getting it glued on here. It'll be glued and screwed. There's a little bit of a sag in that piece of plywood across the top. But that'll get supported later by the rail that gets put up across there. So you can see how deep it's getting now. And I thought that was fairly clever, cutting that deep slot in this piece of plywood so that it would straddle that shelf that's there. Also added a little bit of strength to the shelf since it's cantilevered so far out from the wall. This looks like white paint, but that is blue. I don't know what was up with my camera, but it looks white, but that's actually that same blue. I don't know if it was the fluorescent lights in the room or what it was. Again, I tried to paint things as much as possible in the shop. So this has been sanded. It's got a coat of sanding sealer on it and two coats of the blue. Also, I tried not to paint the areas where I'm going to be gluing things together. So there's no paint in that side right there. This is actually sitting here upside down. So this is the rail at the top, and these are the side stiles. So the sides here is where the doors are going to get screwed onto. Also, if you look back here, I added this cleat on the back here, so that gave me something to run some screws through, so I could screw right into the back of the existing cabinet. Okay, so now it's painted. I'm getting it screwed together here. It's being glued to the piece of plywood that I added to the side. And there's my son, Tony. And we're looking the thing over. Also, I don't know if I put him in yet in this picture, but I did run two screws into the ceiling joists that were up above. So this corner here is being supported by that cleat on the back of the cabinet and a couple of screws that go into the ceiling joist. So it's not completely cantilevered out there, and it always felt as solid as a rock. Another picture of it there. A lot of blue here. So you can see how wide that shelf is now, or cabinet. A little bit of the inside. Here's the drawing that I made for building that cabinet. There's that slot that we saw. And other parts. And then I put some doors on it right away. And again, these came from the Habitat for Humanity. And this is where it was really important that I use that drill bit that lines up your drill, lines up the drill bit right in the hole. So what I had done is I cut a real thin piece of wood and I wedged it, actually had it taped in between these two doors here so that that gap stayed just nice and parallel all the way up and down there. And then by using that centering drill bit and having the hinges nice and flat before I started drilling, the doors stayed right where I had them when I got them all held up there and into position. So that kind of closes that up. It really adds to the kind of the heft of that cabinet there. This is where the two doors come together. So I cut some relief on the back side. So at the front, they're nice and tight. But of course, as the door swings open, it needs to have some relief. Otherwise, it'll interfere with the other door. And I didn't want that to happen. So there they are painted. Everything's looking like it's all one unit. Big storage area right there. And now here I'm working on, if you remember in the drawing, I had some wine glasses that were hanging upside down in here, but it had to be movable. So I made this little, I don't know what you want to call this. It's not a drawer, but it's on drawer slides. And then there's some nice maple pieces of wood that hold the wine glasses on either side. And I had to keep this little box shallow enough so that the sides, so the stems could come down and then the wine glasses would kind of slip in underneath of it. So, and then on the top, there's a real thin board there. And that's kind of a stabilizer that goes in and it actually rubs on the underside of the shelf that this is mounted to. So that, because this is so narrow, it was tippy because of the sloppy tolerances in those drawer slides. But that little piece of wood across the top really smoothed it out. And this got used a lot. It was easy to reach. So now I'm going to turn my focus to the larger shelves that are off to the right side. And I didn't want to just leave those shelves just an open shelf. Actually, I stole this idea of having the cabinet being deep over the refrigerator from my folks' house when they redid their kitchen cabinets. But theirs doesn't, they don't have any drawers in them. And I know that there's stuff packed clear in the back of those cabinets. I think their old Atari is even in there. It's stuff that they don't ever use, they can't hardly get to, they probably don't even know what's in there anymore. I should go over there and see what's in those things just for archaeology reasons. Maybe cut that out. So this is going to be the shelf inside there, and it's a kind of a complicated process what I went through here. I'm going to make dovetails on those drawers so that these are really going to be good quality. And I was very surprised. This is the first time I've ever made dovetails was on this project. And once you get the depth of the cutter on the router set, it was super easy. I mean, it was almost embarrassing. It was so easy because I mean, these are very high quality joints. You know, it's just the number one thing to use in a drawer is a dovetail. And gosh, they were just so easy to do. And look at how long that is. I mean, this is the back side of the drawer. I didn't want things tipping off the back, you know, into the cabinet if somebody pulled the drawer open too quickly. So now here you can see I'm making the dovetail for the front. That's what it looks like right after you cut it. And there's the opposite back side. That's a lot of dovetails. This is actually a dovetailing jig that my dad built. You bought this thing here. This is called a comb. And then you made the rest of it. It's in the Woodsmith magazine. And I really liked it. It worked out really well. So here's the two drawers that are going to go in those two spaces. One's a little taller than the other one. I think, in fact, this, I think, maxed out the dovetail fixture, which was the limiting factor in how tall the back of that shelf could be. So gluing it together. Okay, I had it dry fitted, so I'm knocking it apart here. This is some subfloor. Before you put down vinyl flooring, you put down this type of flooring. It's really a rigid piece of plywood, and it's got no voids in it, so it works out really well for the bottom of drawer. And yes, I got that at the Restore too. So beautiful little bottom. And I don't know what this little piece was here, but it's thinner plywood again, and it's in a groove in the drawer. And then what I did, because these drawers were so big, I mean, you can see how not only deep but wide. I was concerned that over time these drawer bottoms might start to sag, and if they sag far enough, the edges can come out of the groove, and then you've got a real problem. So I laid out the things that were going to get stored in these shelves, and then I put a rib right through the middle so that it had support through the middle. I did that to both of them with special purpose in mind for what was going to end up going in there. So there's the bottom one in, and I kept it a little bit short right there. It has to be a little narrower than where the stile is. So there's a little bit of wasted space there. And if I remember right, it seemed like we had something narrow that we actually stood in here. So that space kind of did get used. There it's pulled out. Now this one doesn't pull out all the way. So you can see it's back, I don't know, maybe 10 inches. But still, the front is pretty well open, since this is low. So that worked out just fine. There's how it hangs out. Now this is the upper one. The upper one has full extension drawer glides on it, and these are deep. You can see how far they go out. They're actually a double here. And you can see some of where I sanded it down. I slathered these pretty good with wood filler before I put them together so that when they were painted, you wouldn't see any. You can see there's some little voids in there. I wanted it to look nice after painting. So paint hides a lot of flaws. So it's one of the beauties of having painted cabinets, which I really like the look of too. So there's the drawer glides installed. Here you can kind of see what I'm going to be working on next. This is the where the wine glasses are going to hang. And then I did extend this shelf out just a little ways to grab hold of this center beam that held the drawer glides on it. And also that's where I mentioned before those top, there's a real thin piece of wood that just slid right on the bottom side of this shelf here and helped stabilize the thing. There they are, both in place. Boom, boom. They're both out there. Let's do that again. In, out, out. Oh, there's just so much up there. And there's my daughter, Gina, who is happily married now and lives in a town near us. So this is just huge hanging up above there. I mean, it's a little disconcerting at first to see something that large hanging out. And so here you can see I'm putting some of the my wife's china in that top shelf. And I'm standing on a stool, and I don't know if it showed up or not. No, it didn't. There's a kitchen counter that comes out right towards the refrigerator, though. This counter towards the refrigerator. This counter is a U shape, and it was real easy to grab things off of that top shelf and then set them right on the counter so you could just stand there. It wasn't like you had to climb up and down off the stool the whole time. Made for very easy loading and unloading. Even though, I mean, this is where we put the things that we didn't use all the time. This was my wife's mother's china, and it was a 10-piece set. So there was a lot of stuff to it and pretty heavy, but these drawer glides were rated like for 120 pounds. So that was probably a good thing. All right. This is the drawing for the coffee cup holder here. So if you want to take a good close look at that, you can stop the video. I don't know what happened there. There it is. I measured the coffee cups closely and to see how far they hung down when put on a hook so that I could make sure that I left enough space for them in there. Here's the beginning of the construction. And I'll admit that this was built pretty stout. Probably didn't need to be 3/4 inch plywood, but that's what I had plenty of. So that's what I used. And of course, I did a nice rabbet down the middle of this. I just love putting joinery like that in things because then when you put it together, it has to go in one place. It's hard to see, but there's actually rabbets in the bottom corners of these pieces here and here too, so that they went in the right place. And then I even did this little triangle. I glued that back on. And then these holes here were an effort to try to lighten the thing up a little bit. So you can see that little rabbet that I cut out of the corner. And then this is radiused here so that when you're putting things in here, you don't have that sharp corner there to maybe brush your hand across. And they're not touching down here. So that's a good fit. See, there's just enough clearance there. And now we're gluing it all together. Used a little bit of gravity there. There's my youngest. She was in the shop a lot with me helping during this project, so that was a lot of fun. There she is again. And here we're getting the thing clamped every which way. And now it's put in, and now you can see how I got a row of coffee cups hanging below on hooks and another row up above. And looks like we got 14 cups on here, and there's room for, I think there were 2 more hooks, so 4 empty hooks on here too, if we wanted to add some other cups, if they happen to fit, although we could probably move some of these up to the top because there was more tolerance for a lower hanging cup here because it didn't reach down to here. There was enough space between those so that when you pulled the drawer in and out, it didn't, the cups didn't clink together at all, possibly chip them. So it was a real nice thing. You pull that out, there's no worries of doing any damage. And is that the most efficient way of packing in as much stuff into that narrow little space there as possible? No, it's not. But is this accessible? Yes, it is. And do we have enough storage for everything? Yeah, we do. So I think I traded the convenience of the access for the maximum storage because, like I said before, you could pack a ton of stuff in here, but then you can't really get to it. So does it do you any good? So there they are. Got the drawers, got the coffee cups, and I got our wine glasses and the coffee cups. And they all can pull out together. There's no interference. Looks good. I just love these pictures. Okay, now I've taken it apart again, and I had the refrigerator out, and I'm putting some wood filler in here to fill that gap. Well, it wasn't a gap, but there was a seam there, and sanded along here. Now, this panel had been painted, but I still had to do a little bit of sanding here to just get a really nice fit on this style that's coming up there. And you can see on the inside here, I'm filling in that seam that's between the new and the old there. That all worked out just fine. And now it looks like a Smurf painted it. This board right here had to be installed so that I had something to screw that drawer slide to for the top shelf. And then this bottom one was real easy. The slide itself just had little feet on it. So all I had to do was just screw them to the floor inside there. So that was good. And I got the inside of this cabinet over here that was in the first video is also now painted. And I still keep thinking of Smurfs whenever I see these pictures there. That's a lot of blue. They're still pulling way out like that, looking pretty finished. And there's all the china loaded up in there. I mean, these are deep. This is a lot of weight up here. And you can't see it, but there's a divider in there. So it looks like the dinner plates went at the back side. And then this is the coffee pot for the set. So I always liked the way that looked because it was just right in front. So here's my wife looking at the coffee cups, and there's everything pushed in, and there's that nice centerpiece coffee pot there. Looks like we probably could have fit more in there. I mean, it's not packed clear to the top. And this might have just been the first loading. There probably was more added to this. And here is I think this is the first picture where I actually had a cap on the end of the wine glass holder. And that is just finished nailed on there because I wanted to be able to access that those drawer glides there in case they ever wore out or needed some kind of maintenance. So the handle went on the bottom of this, which was easy to reach and was a little more secure than the way this isn't glued on the end, this cap here, but I did want a finished look on it. And also I left the maple here, the natural wood color, which is something that is echoed around the kitchen. You can kind of see down here the nook for the phone. See, back in the old days, people had phones that were on the wall. So that was a place for a phone. So there they are. There's the drawer and the coffee cups and the wine glasses. Looks like I finally got around to washing the wine glasses. Nice and clean. There you can really see that knob on the bottom, which was easy to grab. And all buttoned up. Now, there's a lot of stuff in that cabinet. That box is really holding a lot of things. So we'll continue on with this series. You're looking at the next part that we'll be working on, just to the left there where the bare wood is. So that will be in the next video. Thanks for watching my video. This is On the Mark with Mark. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.